Hello and welcome to the 13th installment of Kalam Digest. Today is 31st of October 2024. I'm joined by two esteemed colleagues today, Nora Faris and Sam Samra. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you. Morning.
Good morning. Guys, the barbarity, Sam, you wrote that in the notes, what's going on in Gaza over, at this point, a year and some change after October 7th is simply intensifying. I mean, now we're seeing like the sort of icon of conservative politics in Sweden openly tweeting about this is a genocide, guys.
Yeah.
How is it ongoing? How can it keep going? What is happening in Gaza?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote barbarity in our notes. I mean, we've been talking about this over the last episodes on the digests here, that it's sometimes feels almost difficult to kind of remember Gaza when stuff is happening in Lebanon, and it kind of fades into the background because it's just this ongoing killings, But I think me, just as many other people, probably were shocked out of that complicity, or whatever you want to call it, when we heard about the bombing of one single house in northern Gaza, I think day before yesterday, when over 100 people were killed in one single explosion. And it's just the extent of the number of killed now is back up to the worst levels we've ever seen during this whole genocide. I mean, yeah, it's how is it ongoing? I can't say. It's
many of those, people who were killed were actually, I think, relatives of, or in-law relatives of a friend of the show, Musab Abu Toha.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
with tweets and updates about what's happening in Gaza is just so heartbreaking. It's just so desperate. It just keeps getting worse. It's insane.
I just saw yesterday the kind of video clips from when I was at the huge several million people march in London about I think exactly a year from now, maybe this
several million people.
I think 2 million or something like that. Yeah, it was tense. It was huge, and this was a year ago now. Yeah. And back then, no one could imagine that it would be ongoing and not even slowing down, just going on the same kind of intensity a year from then. So
so interesting with the London protests, because I remember this happening also during the first invasion of Iraq in 2003, that London was specifically one of those places that fully exploded with protests. People were very unhappy with the invasion, and that went on for I don't know how many years. So in some way it is sending a signal to the people that no matter how much you protest and how much you mobilize, it really doesn't matter as long as you are not the people sitting in power, basically, which feels extremely hopeless.
Yeah, I mean, and also London, I mean, the UK specifically, but all of the Western world now, the opinion is turning against Israel. So definitely, it's, I think in London, in the UK, I think it's above 70% say that it's a genocide going on, and that the UK has to, do its part to stop it. But still, you have even the Labour government, supposedly the left-wing party in power, and they are saying you can't call this a genocide. That's a wrong word. And then, and they keep supplying them with arms. And, it's the kind of the disconnect between the people in power in the West right now and the people. I mean, I think your comparison with the Iraq war is very apt. I mean, something similar going on. And I'm seriously worried about how people would perceive that over time if it just keeps on. They don't seem to care at all about public opinion, even in their own countries,
That was the thing also during the Iraq war, that there were a lot of people that kept on emphasizing how important it was to implement some type of democratic value in Iraq, and kept on repeating how important the American invasion was. And now I remember when the 20-year anniversary in 2023, when that took place, there were so many people going out publicly apologizing for having that stance. But unfortunately, nobody will be held accountable for that, because 20 years passed. Nobody's going to say anything to you. So you can just say, I was wrong, but millions died. And that is basically exactly the same thing that is being repeated in Gaza. In 20 years from now, people will also be apologetic, but for what price?
Terrifying prospect, zero accountability for this genocide. But I think we should sort of try to still do our part. I mean, if that means going to protests or speaking out or sort of contacting your representatives, then what else can we do, really?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For 13 installments of Kalam Digest, a common theme has been the ceasefire negotiations, and it's almost like it feels like a nightmare version of deja vu, bringing this up.
Groundhog Day.
Fucking Groundhog Day. If it was like not a rom-com,
Yeah.
it was a horror movie,
Yeah.
So when Sinwar was assassinated by the Israelis or killed in combat, actually probably more an apt description, everyone was like, okay, now the obstacle to a ceasefire has been removed. And that's obviously complete bullshit. That's not the obstacle to ceasefire, but let's buy that argument for a second. Hamas has now agreed to several points and a new ceasefire deal. I mean, are we even going to hold our breaths?
No, nothing's going to happen. Not before the US elections, at least. And after the US elections, it's going to take a couple of weeks to, I don't know, get into the White House and to just start the entire process up from scratch.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think you're probably right, Nora. I mean, we talked also about how it's really hard to feel any kind of or voice any kind of support for the Biden-Harris administration at this point, given their just unprincipled support for the genocide. But I would say I wouldn't say I'm certain, but I think it's very probable that if they win the election, they will move it much harsher against Israel and try to force them to some kind of ceasefire. If Trump wins, I think it's over with the ceasefire. I think it's just going to be Israel gets to do whatever he wants in Gaza for the foreseeable future, and they are obviously not even trying to pretend like they want a ceasefire at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of months back, the Israelis kept saying that Hamas was blocking the ceasefire. Now they're not even saying that. They're just, they
what
know
ceasefire what?
Yeah. But yeah, let's hope at least that the election will given my guesses here that the election will go to Harris and that something will start moving after that. That might be, the most.
Honestly, I don't know if it will go to Harris. I've read up quite a lot on how the Muslim Arabic community is being told to fight back and to punish the Democrats by voting for third candidate, which is Jill Stein, the Green Party. And that would mean that a lot of people will put their vote into a person that this is voters that would usually cast their vote on the Democrats, but because they are so unsatisfied with what the process is with the Gaza war, they are very likely to cast their vote on this third candidate that has absolutely zero chance of getting into the White House. And then that would mean an absolute loss for Harris. But it is a punishment on behalf of the Muslims and Arabs in the country. We'll see.
I mean, certain Muslim associations and organizations in Michigan, where most Arab Americans live, they went out in full blatant support for Trump. Yeah, they literally went to his rallies, and I mean, it's so dark, but it was so funny because it couldn't have been more like Trump villain-like than have all these Muslim like representatives come to his rally, and not just they were like literally dressed in like dish dashes and jalabiyas and like abaya like this, you know what I mean? It was so funny. I was like, this is
it's a cosplay.
I mean, and they did get a lot of blowback over that. I mean, from people who are probably possibly voting for Trump. They're like, but you can't go to his rally. Come on, it's embarrassing the Muslim community.
But we're gotten to this point, and I think people are just desperate and mind fucked. I mean, I feel like I'm in a psychosis constantly. But then let me just say my 2 cents about the elections. I think I do kind of, I don't know, man. Like it could go either way, but I think the Democrats keep fucking up when it comes to the Muslim vote and the Arab vote. 2 examples. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had this like
I saw that.
where they couldn't even like spell like Arabic correctly, so it didn't even
maybe it was something like you should vote early.
Yeah,
which
said
is
like vote early, but like backward and then all caps. It was like so bad,
and all the letters were disconnected, like disjointed.
all the letters, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the equivalent in English would be like all caps, but not even all caps. It's just like
much worse. Yeah,
so bad.
Like it's exactly the thing. Thing is also, I mean, if you've been I've been working for a political party doing stuff like this for a while, you know, and you come across these sometimes. And it's as soon as some communications guy has just put, you know, a phrase into Google Translate, then copy pasted it in Word, because Word usually doesn't, you know, at least historically, it didn't actually, it couldn't like join the letters together correctly in Arabic, so you just end up like this.
What's crazy,
and you know, this like
literally can do it on Google
prove that no one on your entire campaign team even knows how Arabic looks. You know, not like they don't speak it properly. You know, they have no clue how it's supposed to look. Like not a single person. You know.
So that was the one thing. The other thing that I saw was, I mean, everyone's freaking out about this Tony Hinchcliffe or whatever his name is, calling Puerto Rico a floating pile of garbage, which is really bad and racist. But what?
It's a shit show.
It's so bad. But what people didn't I haven't seen anyone react to this other than people like on my Twitter feed, which is what Rudy Giuliani said. Rudy Giuliani, guys, can we?
Yeah. So
what did he say,
bro? Rudy Giuliani. Let me just remind you. Okay, 4 seasons, total landscaping. He was nearly entrapped in a Borat movie. This is Rudy Giuliani. All right. So he fucking said, okay, and this is when the segment stops becoming funny. He said that Palestinians are taught at the age of 2 to kill Americans and that they're terrorists.
And the Palestinians are taught to kill us at 2 years old. They won't want a Palestinian in Jordan. They won't want a Palestinian in Egypt. And Harris wants to bring them to you. They may have good people. I'm sorry, I don't take a risk with people that are taught to kill Americans at 2. I'm on the side of Israel. You're on the side of Israel. Donald Trump's on the side of Israel. And they're on the side of the terrorists.
Which, in the current climate, and you know, considering what the USA does to terrorists and what Israel does to terrorists, he's literally, you know, saying that 2-year-olds, Palestinians, are legitimate targets.
Yeah.
No one. I mean, the Democrats are obviously like, you know, they activated the machinery to try to make a political point out of the Puerto Rico slander, but they haven't said a fucking word about Rudy Giuliani. Neither has the media. Neither has the media. It blows my mind. Like, do Palestinian lives matter that little?
You're right.
Like Oxfam published a report recently saying that like this is the deadliest period for women and children in any war in recent memory. Like, what the fuck? Okay. Anyway,
you're totally right. I mean, I think also the thing is, like, I mean, the comedian was, I mean, it's obviously horrible and racist, you know, but he was trying to be, you know, transgressive. He was trying to, you know, he was supposed to say stuff that was supposed to be funny, you know, going too far. That's being funny, you know, to the right-wing audience. But I mean, Rudy Giuliani isn't joking. I mean, this is what he actually believes. It's not even kind of like, you know, it's not even trying to like be kind of, it's not a weird like turn of phrase. This is what he thinks.
He's not a comedian.
Yeah, he's not a comedian, and he's not like not trying to like provoke anyone in that
he believes
sense. The last thing about the elections, I think it's important to see that. I mean, for every election up until now, 60% of the Arab vote has gone to the Democrats, and that is, you know, that's a bit surprising given that, you know, a lot of the Arabs in the US are like Lebanese Christian conservatives. Basically, that's a very big, you know, part of that demographic. So it's been a very strong support, even when Hillary Clinton got, I think, 65% of the vote, and you know, less than 20 went to Trump the last time.
Biden got 59 or something, right?
Yeah, something like that. And then now Trump is actually outpolling Harris. You know, he's at 45 to 44 or something like that in the Arab vote, which is, you know, And the interesting thing is, in the same opinion poll, the same people say, do you think Trump is an anti-Arab and anti-Muslim racist? And they're like, yeah, of course he is. I'm voting for him. So it's basically they're punishing the Democrats. That's the only thing they're doing. They don't actually believe that he's good in any way,
Which is a rational thing. That's what you do. That's what democracy is. If to anyone considering this to be sort of, or to feeling the urge to condescendingly tell Arabs to vote for the Democrats, that's not how democracy works. You're allowed to punish people you don't like. So moving on to our next subject, Israel has banned UNRWA, which is the UN agency dedicated to Palestinian refugees, of which there are several million at this point, after the Nakba of 1948, when 750,000 people were forcibly displaced from what is now the State of Israel. Israel banning UNRWA is a huge, huge move. What does this mean? What and why did they do it?
I would honestly say that this is a way to ensure that humanitarian aid completely stops and any type of registration of the war crimes going on in the West Bank and in Gaza are eliminated as well, so that there will be no more records. I say UNRWA, but they are supporting 6 million Palestinian refugees. It is the main humanitarian agency in Gaza, and they provide all things from school to health centers. It even gives out loans to Palestinians. And they have been in charge of the humanitarian aid entering the Strip for decades, and also during this war. And I did actually dive down into the numbers today, speaking of humanitarian aid, which has been so severely limited over the past month by Israel. And according to the UN, during October, only 852 trucks have entered the Strip. And this is the absolute lowest number of aid being delivered on ground since October last year, when the war started. And just to compare, in September, last month, over 3,000 trucks entered. And that was still amid reports saying that the population in Gaza was at a risk of famine. These types of numbers makes it kind of graspable how incredibly limited the UNRWA already is, and any type of humanitarian aid, and blocking that, banning that agency is just a way to starve them legally, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we should thank you, Nora, for that. Those numbers. I think we should also mention that blocking humanitarian aid is a war crime, and one of the big arguments when people speak about this as being a genocide. Sam, can you talk about the significance of UNRWA in terms of its work with the refugee question and the right of return, and its significant, and why Israel hates it so much in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nora, a very good summary of what it's doing on the ground. I mean, that is the important thing, that it's the work that it's carrying out every day. And, huge part of the Palestinian community is totally dependent on UNRWA to even exist, to survive day from day, and for schooling, and for everything. I mean, it's a lot of the basic kind of infrastructure of Palestinian society is based around this organization. But I mean, as you said, Edgar, it's also about UNRWA is established specifically to ensure that the Palestinian refugees have the right of return. It's an organization based on that kind of the UN recognizing that right as an inalienable right for the Palestinian people. And this is, of course, why Israel hates it. They want to dismantle it. They want the Palestinians in exile and in the occupied territories to basically just disappear, to dissipate, into other countries. This is something you often hear from pro-Zionist, pundits saying oh, well, other people just go away. Why haven't you? Why are you still around? Somehow weirdly they're disappointed that their ethnic cleansing hasn't, resulted in the disappearance of the Palestinian people. And this existence of this kind of recognized group and organized around this UN institution is kind of an embarrassment to the Israeli state as it is. And by boycotting or outlawing that organization, they're obviously trying to weaken that cause and weaken the kind of the resilience of the Palestinian community as such, as an exile community, rather than just a huge number of individuals just disappearing from the stage of history.
I thought we'd end this segment by listening to the senior director of UNRWA, Sam Rose, reacting to Israel's decision.
What we've seen in this conflict over the past 13 months is all sorts of red lines crossed in terms of the brutality that's being meted out on a civilian population here as a result of the horrific events of the 7th of October. And we call constantly and consistently for a ceasefire, the immediate and unconditional release of hostages. But I can tell you without any doubt that the plight of the civilian population inside Gaza will get immeasurably worse if and when these bills are implemented. There's absolutely no doubt about that. There are no other organizations that can pick up the bulk of what UNRWA does in terms of its operations here. No one has 13,000 staff, 75 years of knowledge, of understanding of the community here. It simply will not be possible.
So that was Senior Director of UNRWA, Sam Rose, reacting to the Israeli absolutely ludicrous decision on BBC the other day. Speaking of other ludicrous Israeli decisions, let's look at some internal Israeli politics. Deaths within the Israeli army are probably higher than previously reported. Sam, you had some numbers there. Can you tell us what this story is about and its significance?
Yeah, it's been discussed on this podcast, not least, over a long time now, whether or not the Israeli reporting on, the number of casualties and also on the impact, for example, of the rockets fired from Iran or from Hezbollah are they reliable or not? Because we all know, and they're explicitly saying that they are carrying out kind of a military censorship of the media. They're not allowing free reporting on war-related issues. And what happened just the other day was that Yesh Atid, the leader of the opposition, or one of the two main leaders of the opposition, at least in Israel, and a strong critic of Netanyahu, came out and said, this is a quote by him: "There are limits to how much we accept the alternative facts." And he says then, there's 11,000 injured and 890 soldiers killed since the start of the war. And this is, I'm not sure what they're actually reporting in Israel, but this is, usually, but this is much higher than what's usually been reported. And he says then, these are the correct numbers. I have them because I'm on the inside, and I'm now broadcasting these true numbers because we can't accept that the government is kind of trying to downplay the extent of the casualties that we are having in this war. So that's a huge thing. Firstly, the numbers are high. Compared to the Lebanon war of 82 to 85, in 3 years of war, Israel lost in a total 654 killed. And the Lebanon war of 2006, just 121 killed. And both of those were seen as, really, really putting a heavy strain on Israeli society because they're not used to losses on the scale that, for example, the Palestinians are used to. So that's one thing. The other thing is obviously that Yesh Atid seems to be breaking some kind of code of honor here, of code of silence. You're supposed to follow kind of the talking points of the government, even if you're in the opposition. So we'll see how that plays out. Just one last thing about Atid is they might seem here as if he's some kind of peacenik or against the war or something like that. That is not at all the case. He is using these numbers to criticize Netanyahu for carrying out the war in an inefficient or generally strategically misguided way. He is very much for the war, both against Gaza and Lebanon. And famously or infamously, he said after the strike on Iran, when Israel struck only military establishment in Iran rather than striking civilian targets, he deplored Netanyahu for not making the Air Force attack civilian targets to kind of punish the Iranian people. So this is not in any way pro-peace person, but I think anyway the numbers are interesting and the breaking of rank is interesting.
Yeah, I think we received a message somewhere, kind of a halfway angry message saying that we should have mentioned or kind of spoken about the Israeli attack on Iran. I feel like it wasn't so newsworthy,
No.
But maybe we should mention it. Israel did attack Iran and sort of blew up some military stuff apparently, but they didn't go after the oil facilities. They didn't go after nuclear facilities, probably as a direct sort of red line order from the Americans in order for the Iranians to kind of have the opportunity of an off-ramp to not escalate further. But yeah, the Israelis attacked Tehran, Mashhad, and Shiraz with kind of limited strikes. I don't know. The Iranians haven't really reported any casualties. And
they recorded 3 dead soldiers, I think, or something like that, which is a very low number, of course. I mean, compared to what we were expecting.
Yeah. So maybe that can suffice as us mentioning this. Unless
I mean, we should mention it, yeah, because we've been talking about it for a long time. When is it happening? When is it going?
Yeah.
It was very much. I mean, disappointment is obviously the totally inappropriate word here, but it's kind of a. It was very much like a not very as you said, we're not very newsworthy. It was seemed very limited and very much, as you said, we haven't seen the US doing anything useful in this conflict so far. But if there was a fact which seems probable that they pushed them to limit their strike very much, both in terms of what they target and in terms of its extent. I mean, that was a good thing. It seems. Iran is, talking about they were going to strike back, etc. But it seems like they are actually backing down from escalating that, which would be great. We're not going to have a third world war, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. Rabbana yastur. So for our last story, Hezbollah has what is this, like the fourth leader? It's third leader in
third.
Naim Qasim has taken over as Secretary General, I think is the term, and spiritual leader of Hezbollah. He held a speech the other day, which was ominously kind of interrupted in the middle. Reports of, and then it started again, but it was kind of weird. It was as usual a TV broadcast speech because his location is unknown. That's a minor detail. Do we know anything about this guy? Is this a significant appointment, or is this kind of expected?
I mean, he's a long-standing member of the leading group around Nasrallah. He's been, I think he was one of the founding members. He joined already in '82. So I mean, he's a very long history in the movement, and he's a central figure. I think he's been second or third in command, ever since the '80s. Mm-hmm. But then moving him to the front right now, I'm not sure. I mean, I think what I've read and what I've thought myself is that perhaps the important part right now is just to show that they still have leaders around. There's no problem for them promoting someone to take that place. So in that sense, they're showing that there's a continuity in the leadership, which is true. I mean, they do get killed, but there are also more of them. And I think, in terms of politics, in terms of his positions, I haven't seen anything pointing to him having some specific line. I mean, when Sinwar was elected leader of Hamas, it was clearly it could have gone other ways. They could have chosen some more moderate person or something like that. But this, see no discussions of him being either a hardliner or something else. Particularly. Yeah. I think it's interesting as well to just report that Galant, the head of the Israeli army, the defense minister, I think, just minutes after his appointment, threatened him with murder, on Twitter, saying, "Brilliant. Yeah, he is, he is the leader of Hezbollah, not for long." It's this is are they 15 years old? Seriously, this is not. Is this a serious government?
I feel like Israeli officials have two ways of expressing themselves right now. It's either genocidal fascism or this G.I. Joe cowboy let's get you
gone forward style.
Yeah, let's gung-ho weird fucking Vietnam War rhetoric. It's unappealing.
The entire thing with having a war on Twitter and also saying everything on Twitter and posting so much on Twitter is just so not intimidating in that sense. If you had an enemy and you were going to war against them, wouldn't you be more intimidated if they never posted anything about their plans? They don't exist on social media.
Yeah, seriously, I'm gonna kill you on Twitter is not Like,
It's just
Well,
not the most
exactly.
impressive move if you're actually going to kill someone.
yeah.
Maybe I should end this whole digest by quoting Drake when in his diss song against Meek Mill a few years ago, he said, "Trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers."
Oh no.
Anyway, this has been Get Out Digest. Episode 13.
Cairo in days.
We said we would make this tight. I think this might be the longest digest we've done, but it's just so pleasant to speak to you guys.
It really is.
Thank you so
I
much.
think you're gonna have to cut out a little bit of it.
Thank you so much, Noura Adin Faris, Sam Kal Samra.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edgar Manheimer.
Pleasure.